Hello, and welcome to our weekly Friday Live Extra, produced in conjunction with Friday Live, which broadcasts over the air and comes to you as a podcast each week. Don't forget to check out even more about Nebraska Arts and Humanities on our website, nebraskapublicmedia.org/Friday Live. I'm Genevieve Randall. This week on our Friday Live Extra, we check in with the Grand Island Music Series. They aim to bring a number of styles to the greater Grand Island area. These range from folk music to jazz to Latin American music. And coming up this Sunday at College Park in Grand Island, that's the 18th, 2 p.m., it's the McGovern String Band, bringing their flavor of bluegrass and Americana. So today I'm joined here in the studio by Kelly McGovern, Brian McGovern, and Darren Blythe. Great to see you guys again.
Great to be back.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, welcome back. If folks want to go listen to you play, they can go back to one of our November shows and hear you play in our Ron Hall studio. Well, let's just start here, I think, by kind of reintroducing you or introducing you for the first time to listeners who've not met you. If we want to just go down the line and say who you are and what role you play with the band. Who's going to start? Kelly?
Well, I'll start. Yeah, I'm Kelly McGovern, and I guess I would be considered the leader of the band. The band originally started off with my sister Erin and I, and without any real imaginative band names, we came up with the McGovern String Band. And so, yeah, this has been going on for over 10 years, and I'm so fortunate to have Brian, my son, become such a great musician himself, and so he stepped right into where my sister Erin left off. It's been a real pleasure to be able to play and sing with my son.
And how many instruments and what instruments do you play?
Well, I predominantly play guitar. I can play a little bit of banjo, and that's about it.
Okay.
I'm mostly singing. I love to sing.
Brian, you're up next.
Yes, my name's Brian. I filled in for my Aunt Erin about, 10 years ago or so, and been playing mandolin and singing high harmonies ever since. So, yeah.
What kind of mandolin do you play?
I play a Collings MF630.
You want to tell me what's special about that?
Well, the most special thing about it is that years ago my mom told my dad that he couldn't ride his motorcycle anymore, so he sold his motorcycle and surprised me with a brand new mandolin with the proceeds. So that's the most special part about it, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Darren, you're up next. What's your role with the band?
So yeah, I'm the banjo player, and that's it. And and helping set up and tear down gear, yeah.
How long you been playing banjo?
Off and on since 8th grade. So that, I guess that would be, about 35 years?
I feel like the banjo is pretty special. It's one of the instruments, along with accordion, bagpipe, trombone, and viola, that gets put in the center of jokes, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
We got lots
so,
of
I'm
banjos.
sure you do. How did you choose the banjo?
It was almost by chance. I was watching TV one day, and a commercial came on that had a banjo in the background, and my mom was in the room with me, and I was like, man, that sounds really cool. That'd be a cool instrument to be able to play. And I think it was the following Christmas I got one. And yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
Who are some of your favorite banjo players?
I like them all, really. Right now, who am I listening to right now? I like Nick Hornbuckle. He plays with John Reichman. And, of course, I developed as a player listening to Earl Scruggs and J.D. Crowe, the pretty traditional bluegrass stylists. But, yeah, I discovered Bela Fleck when I was in college back in the 80s when he was doing a lot of solo stuff. Again, by chance, I saw one of his albums on the front of the record bin in the record store, and I bought it, and it was all this non-bluegrass instrumental banjo. And at that time, I hadn't acquired a taste for bluegrass yet, so it really it was cool to hear somebody doing that, taking the banjo out of that context that it was so known for. And so I'm a big fan of Bela, obviously. And I like playing with these guys because we do a lot of a good variety of different songs and different styles that appeals to that somewhat eclectic background I have.
I'm really glad that you mentioned unique sound when you talked about banjo and the kind of eclectic sound, the sound of bluegrass. There's something on your website here that I want to read out. 3-part harmonies combined with a percussive acoustic instrumentation bring back that legendary high lonesome sound of bluegrass. Oh, what a poetic description. What is that legendary high lonesome sound?
Well, I mean, I think it's got a lot to do with grown men singing as high as they possibly can, beyond what should be the limit. I mean, I find myself doing that a lot, trying to sing these harmonies that my Aunt Erin used to sing. They're a little bit outside of my vocal range, but if you hit the note right and you blend them together, it sounds great as a harmony,
Do you think it changes the emotion? Where's the lonesome part?
Oh, well, that's probably because the banjo players kept driving people away.
Are you going to take that, Darren?
Just kidding.
I'm impressed that he snuck that in like that.
I showed him a meme recently of 4 people playing the banjo, and they all looked very lonely. And it says it was the 2026 calendar of lonely banjo players.
Yep.
I'm pretty, at my house, if I get it out and start playing, I can clear a room pretty quickly.
There are a lot of songs, of course, about relationships in any genre. I mean, bluegrass included. But it seems like bluegrass also pulls from a number of cultures. And there is something about that early time in America when you were kind of lonesome or out on your own or searching for your place in the world. So some of the lyrics maybe come from that. Are there some songs you guys do that might be an example of that?
What that brings to mind for me is the Appalachians, that so many people worked in the coal mines, and, the Irish, and there are so many different immigrants that were looking for work, and, not only lonely in the mines, but after they got out, they'd be sitting on the front porch picking and singing the blues, more or less, singing what their lives were about. Yeah, there's a lot of songs that have a lot of feeling when it comes to bluegrass. There's so many wonderful genres of bluegrass, I guess you could say, whether it be the kind of song that make you want to cry or the kind of song that make you want to get up and tap your feet, so it goes from one extreme to the other.
I mean, for me, some of bluegrass's roots are in hard times in general. And the evolution of that style kind of started during the Great Depression or comes from it. And that part of the country was hit especially hard in those times. And it gave that music, especially the original purveyors of it, that music has a feel to it that I don't think has really been reproduced since then. And it's because those people came from a lonesome, hard environment like that.
It is interesting to think that's 1920s when you're mentioning Dust Bowl days, and here we are 100 years later. What do all of you still connect with? Why were you inspired to get into bluegrass in the first place?
Well, in my case, I was always searching for, I grew up playing James Taylor, Cat Stevens, and, what was popular in those days, and the Beatles, of course. But as I evolved in listening to guitarists like Norman Blake, and the album Will the Circle Be Unbroken back in the day was just a collection of Earl Scruggs and all of his proteges. That really opened up my mind. And then, of course, I've mentioned before, the Newgrass Revival was my favorite. Hot Rise, a group out of Colorado that's been around for over 40 years. And so, once you get your foot wet into the bluegrass scene, you start finding out all these wonderful bands that are out there. And then you go to a Telluride Bluegrass Festival and get to see them all, your idols and stuff like that. In fact, we're just making plans to go see Sam Bush in April. He is my favorite of them all. But the bluegrass scene, even nowadays with Billy Strings coming up, and, there's some young local bands around here that I see that are bringing bluegrass along. I think it's something that will survive, We just played a gig the other night with a Grateful Dead band and a Fish band, and we opened up with bluegrass, and the people just loved it. So I think it's just as popular as ever.
Well, the other cool thing about that community is it's small enough that even the A-list people in it are pretty accessible in ways that other genres of music may not be. So it's easy to get into it and immerse yourself and get some positive feedback.
Well, when you're in Grand Island, I'm sure there's some folks in Grand Island too who are great players. As we're talking about favorites here, Brian, what are some of your favorite bluegrass musicians? Who are your idols?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was lucky to grow up being exposed to a lot of bluegrass. You know, I grew up listening to it, and I knew what it was from the beginning. You know, some of the first music I ever heard was bluegrass. I grew up listening to Sam Bush and Hot Rise, like he mentioned. And then, you know, I dipped away from bluegrass a lot in my teens, got really into heavy metal, Pantera. I loved Pantera. In rap and hip-hop music, too. And then, you know, started playing guitar when I was about 15 or 16. And then it was, like he mentioned, going to the Telluride Bluegrass Festival in 1999 changed my life, and I came home and decided, like, that's what I want to do. I want to play bluegrass. And I think I ended up getting a mandolin shortly thereafter, and yeah, the rest is history.
So as you're playing in Grand Island, do you guys set a set list ahead of time? Do you feel like, oh, let's see what the crowd feels? How do you go about choosing what you're going to play?
It depends from gig to gig. Like, you know, most of the time we do have a set list arranged, but sometimes we just kind of bring the whole list from A to Z, and we start in the A's and kind of move on down the list playing whatever we feel like, you know.
Including, I understand, I think, and since we talked last time, some music that might not have originally been bluegrass, but you guys put your own spin on it. Am I wrong?
Oh, no. We do.
You do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
some Allman Brothers and John Mayall, some blues songs and
Beatles tunes.
Beatles. And, yeah. It's always fun to put a little bluegrass twist to a popular song, I guess.
Neil Young stuff, yeah.
Neil Young,
Really any idea that gets brought to the band, we'll figure out a way to bluegrassify
Try and
it.
think of something now. Next time I see you guys, a real challenge that you get to turn into bluegrass.
I hope it's Pantera.
I'll figure that out. We'll see. I'll think about it. Well, the website doesn't have dates after the Grand Island show. Are there any shows in the works yet to be announced, or?
Well, this is kind of the slow time of the year for us. You know, it'll pick up once all the wineries and festivals get going in the spring and summer. But no, it's kind of funny. We don't really have to work too hard at staying busy. The things just seem to kind of come to us more than us having to look for jobs. But so, and it's a retirement thing for me. I love to it gets me out of the house. And it's just another job for these guys that are still working.
It doesn't feel like a job.
It's a lot of fun, and I've been playing in bands ever since I got out of high school in some form or another, and there's something about, I guess maybe it's what my mental health needs, you know, music means so much to me that I've got to get out and play and sing just to feel alive.
All right. Well, you've got a chance to feel alive, too, as you listen to these folks in Grand Island. Kelly McGovern, Brian McGovern, and Darren Blythe, all with the McGovern String Band. Their show takes place at College Park in Grand Island on Sunday, January 18th at 2 p.m., part of the Grand Island Concert Series. And as always, more information is available on the Friday Live page at nebraskapublicmedia.org. It is always good to hear from you all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Friday Live Extra. Don't forget to check out a full Friday Live show, too, by subscribing to the Friday Live podcast. Listen online at nebraskapublicmedia.org/Friday Live, or tune in at 10 a.m. Central every Friday for the broadcast on Nebraska Public Media.